Yeah, yeah.
Throw your hands up, everyone. Shake the stress that's killing you. Fancy footwork just like me. Shake it over this dance floor. Throw your hands up, everyone. Shake the stress that's killing you. Fancy footwork just like me. Shake it over this dance floor.
Enjoy your life, be free, live right. Enjoy your life, have some fun and enjoy.
Coming up on Mental Health Marty. Listen, we're talking about self-harm. Yes, Black people do self-harm as well. I'm so excited about our guest, none other than Richard, you fill in the blank, Taylor from the, where you at, Richard? Up in Seattle. Glad to have him here. Don't let him scare you off. Come on back. What's going on, everybody? Hey, it's me. Yes, it's Martina Sellers, your mental health hygienist, coming to you live and always in living color in Southern California, where the sun is always shining. It's not raining, and we had a beautiful day out here. High 70s. It was great. Wind wasn't too bad. It's a great day. So glad that you're joining us. And again, welcome to Mental Health Marty. We are so glad that you're joining us today. Listen, we are exclusively on YouTube right now. We're doing that, so we got to give people some time to join us. But listen, invite all your friends from Facebook, all your friends from Instagram, all your friends from Snapchat, Twitter, Tweaker, and everything else to come and join us, because we are here and doing well on YouTube. Hope that your week has been as great as mine. And listen, we have to make sure we are taking care of each other during these times with everything going on. Yvette, how are you, darling? Good to see you. Appreciate you popping in on us. Yes, yes. But hope that you are doing well. And definitely, if you need some parenting classes or some great anger management classes, check out Dr. Yvette Harris, because she is the bomb.com. And so you need great people in your life who know how to get what you need when you need it. And she's one of those people. So glad that you're here. Listen, let me remind you what Mental Health Marty is all about. We, the Mental Health Matters with Marty show, is a psychoeducational show. We are here not to be a substitute for you seeing your therapist. We are not a substitute for you seeing your psychologist. We are not a substitute for you seeing your psychiatrist. There's a difference. Your medical doctor or your pastor or anyone. We are a supplement to come alongside you in this journey called mental health and wellness. It's important that we keep this together. How do we do that? We make sure that we are participating in the right activities that are keeping us alive and well and keeping our mental health fresh, and so that we are on point all the time. However, if you're experiencing any type of psychological or medical emergency, please go to your nearest urgent care or dial 911. We want to make sure that is clear with you, because again, do not be saying, Marty told me. No, no, no. I told you to see your help, see your therapist, and see everyone else. Yes, Yvette, of course, definitely. But again, now, always, how do I get notification about the show if I am not a member on here? And how do I engage? I am so glad that you asked that question. Because we are exclusive to YouTube, how do you like and subscribe? Because that's how we see the comments. Like Yvette Harris has done. She's making the comments. We can see them. So Daryl, how do they subscribe? I'm glad you asked that question. This is as simple as that. You go to our page, you like, you subscribe, you hear that bell. It's all that simple, and that's how you do it. We would love to hear from you on today and even the topic. The topic today. So glad that you asked us the topic. The topic is today is Self-Harm Awareness Day. Why do we have Self-Harm Awareness Day? Because a lot of people are self-harming. And self-harm can be in the areas of so many different areas where we're self-harming because we can have low self-esteem. We don't believe what it is about ourselves. We don't think positively about ourselves. In other words, I say it this way, y'all, we have to stop the stinking thinking. How do we do that? We get to redefine and rewrite the narratives about our lives. So let me say it this way too. Black people, we self-harm too, and we got to take it more seriously. I was doing some research here and right before the show, looking at NAMI. NAMI is the National Association for Mental Illness. Beautiful organization. And they were talking about in there 4%, and it might even be higher because of the pandemic. Last study showed that 4% of adults self-harm. 4% of adults self-harm. And then when we look at our adolescents, as high as 15% are doing or participating in some form of self-harm. What is self-harm? I'm so glad you asked these questions. Self-harm can appear in a variety and multiple ways. And we're going to definitely get into that when our guest comes on, Richard Taylor. But we have so many different forms of self-harm. Self-harm can be in the form of cutting. Self-harm could be in the form of drinking and alcohol, and reckless behaviors, and a variety of things. We're going to definitely go into a lot more detail. But I always say it this way. If our activities and our behaviors are contrary to that which is normal, and normal is relative, then we have to look at self-harming behaviors. Dr. Rita Walker says it this way. Love her book when she talks about the unapologetic mental health guide for Black people. She talks about that how in our communities of color, we are in so much trauma that we no longer understand or recognize when we are in crises. That's a powerful statement. That we have normalized trauma. We have normalized the pressures of life so much till we no longer realize and recognize when we are in crises. And she takes it a step further when we're talking about self-harming behaviors, suicidal behaviors, that oftentimes we look at it from being very drastic. However, she goes into this too. There are so many of self-harming behaviors that we have not tracked, such as alcoholism and how that leads to death. When we have high blood pressure and we're not taking our medicine, that's a form of self-harm. When we have high diabetes and we're not taking our insulin shots and doing those things, that's a form of self-harm. When we know that we should be eating the right foods, but however, we are not doing it because I just love me some fried chicken and I love this and this, that's a form of self-harm. In other words, when we know to do right and we continue not to do it, that is a form of self-harm. And we need to have an open, honest conversation about that because it becomes, if I'm using my cognitive behavior, CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, it's mind over mood. It's mind over taste buds. Come on, somebody. It's mind over doing what we've always done. We have the cognition to be able to, and some of us need some support along this way. We have the cognition and the ability to overcome every situation and problem we have, but we cannot do it alone. And I'm so glad that I don't do this show alone either today. And I'm so glad to have with me today my brother. He's doing so. I'm trying to grow up and be like him, go to speaking gigs and go across the country to universities and colleges and high schools and everything else. Jails, just don't stay there. This brother is, listen, if you don't follow him, you need to follow him because every Friday he drops a video about his haircut. Now, I am, right, come on. Come on. Yes, that fried bird is real. You ain't never lied on that. I'm just glad this brother I'm so glad to call him friend, and he is definitely that. But I'm gonna tell you, watch out for the Friday videos after the haircut. There was a time when I did have hair. As I say, I went bald by choice. Anyway, so glad to have my brother on here, none other than Richard Taylor Jr., all the way from Seattle. What's up,
Hey,
Richard?
Marty, thanks for having me, man. And now I feel convicted because I definitely had 3 wings before I hopped on this call with you. So I said I was going to do it before Lent start tomorrow, and now boom, here we are.
Oh, snap. You're right. Lent does start tomorrow. Oh, God. Oh, God. I just got off of a fast. I'm not ready to go back on something else. That's all right. I
Hey,
get you. Man, how you feeling? You're looking good up there. Life must be treating you well. You're doing some great stuff.
I'm
What's up?
good,
Richard,
man.
for those who don't know you, introduce yourself to those on the show.
Oh, where do we start? Richard Taylor Jr., living in Seattle, Washington, by way of Chicago, Illinois. I'm a
Uh-huh.
Chicago kid through and through. So got to make sure that's
Oh,
always
okay.
put
Yeah,
out there. You know,
I
I got to make
understand.
sure that's always, I love home, man. But yeah,
From
author,
one cold to
speaker,
another.
there you go. At least, you know what, this one's better though. I will say that. This one typically doesn't get as cold. But yeah, man, I do a host of things, man. Author, speaker,
Yeah.
podcaster, mental health advocate. Obviously,
Yeah.
really big in the space of simplifying the conversation for mental health, just for
Yeah.
people to at least get the work started, right? Trying to
Yeah.
bring conversations of hope that will lead them and bridge the gap to them
That's
going to
good.
seek out help. I
Yeah.
also, you mentioned NAMI earlier. I sit on the board for NAMI Eastside out here in Washington State. So one of the board of directors for NAMI out here in Washington
I'm
State,
not
which is
worthy.
stop it. And then also too, outside of that, man, worship leader out here at a church in Seattle called A Seattle Church, man, doing some amazing things in a city that people
Yeah.
don't necessarily, look at the conversation of faith as a big thing, but it really is, man. So those
Yeah.
are just a few of the titles I hold, but I'm also a husband, which is
All
probably
right.
one of my greatest titles. And I can't even say probably, it is.
Yes.
But I do a host of things, man. Overall, just a lover of people. As somebody
Yeah.
who is an overcomer and a survivor
Mm-hmm.
of a multitude of suicide attempts from the age of 10 to
Mm.
20, really taking my story of overcoming depression and morbid obesity
Yes.
and
Yes.
everything else
Yes.
in between, and trying to like utilize that, if for nothing else, just
Yes.
to allow that vulnerability to be a form of help and a doorway, a gateway,
Yes.
essentially, to get other people to really start looking at themselves, man, and seeking healing.
That's right. That's right. And Richard, what I've always loved about you, my brother, is that your vulnerability and your willingness to talk about it. So that and for me, it's just so that you're helping so many other black men, so many other men. I say black men because a lot of times we internalize everything and never talk
Yeah.
about it. And so I find it so, even when I'm in sessions with my other black male clients and everything, they're like, "You've gone through that too?" I'm like, "Yeah, we all have," but because we have not been given permission to find safe spaces to talk through our problems, to talk through our
Yeah.
issues. And so, man, I applaud you and love what you're doing about being so vulnerable, because oftentimes we thought no one in our community ever thinks about committing suicide or anything like that. And you're like, that's a lie. Listen,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's, man, I just love
I
your
appreciate
openness and
that.
willing to talk about that. Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah,
bro.
yeah. Okay. Yes. Listen, I don't know where you get the energy to do all your running every day, dropping your Friday videos after the Daryl. I wish that we had one up in here. It didn't even hit me to get one from his Instagram and play it up in here.
Oh my
But
goodness.
man, what is the drive behind your Richard Taylor Jr. brand? What's the drive?
Ooh, that's a
What
really
makes
good
you do what you
question.
do?
That is a really good question. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like obviously there's something there, but it could be a host of
Right.
things. Um,
Sure.
Part of it is just the fact that I've had a vision for this for a long time, And I think, a big part of that is just pursuing that vision. But then I think as I get deeper
Right.
and deeper into the work, every person that I get a chance to have contact
Yes.
with and have impact with, that becomes a part of it as well, right? Like being able to really
Yes.
just like link arms with individuals and to see them and to realize like every time you go out there is an opportunity. And I don't say this in a
Mhm.
self-righteous way, but it's an opportunity to be a catalyst to save somebody's life. I won't say
Mhm.
save somebody's
Mhm.
life, but to be at least be a catalyst. And so
Right.
that's a
Right.
huge part of it. But then also too, man, I think a big part of the drive is just never wanting to go back to what I was and where I used to be. And when
Mm.
I say that, I'm talking
Yeah.
about from a mental and an emotional standpoint. I'm talking about
Right.
from the fact that, we didn't grow up with a lot of money, like as a family. So a big part of it for
Right.
me
Right.
is like, man, I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to change the way that money is viewed, the way that, every gift and
Yes.
talent that I have is put out there
Yes.
and not leaving this earth with anything left behind and just really putting it out there. I think that's a huge part of it. And then also too, man,
It
like
is.
even though at days where I don't feel like it, a big part of it for me is that I feel like I have yet to reach the pinnacles that I'm supposed to be reaching. You know what I'm saying? And so like
Yes.
I'm like,
Totally.
I get into this mode now where I'm like, Rich, talk your ish. Like I'm one of one, and I'm gonna make sure
Yes.
y'all know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and
I
I don't
love
and
it.
I don't mean that in a boastful way, but it's just one of those things where I'm like,
Right.
you see so many people out here that don't have the heart, the message, the
Yes.
story, or the proper
Yes.
motive behind what they do. And I'm like,
Right.
and people are they've fallen for the cloak and dagger of this, then the smoke and mirrors. I'm like, nah, man. I'm
Right.
like, I can't just sit here in the background and just let this be. Like, I'm gonna let my light shine
Exactly.
and let my
That's
honesty
right.
and integrity shine through. So it's all of
Yeah, because
that
you're really
clumped
helping
into
so
one.
many. Mhm. Yeah, it is. It is because which and I don't know if you found this too. The more that you share your story, the more brothers pull you to the side, be like, "Man, I didn't know that," or that type of, and
Definitely.
so it just definitely opens up the conversation for that. And I've had more referrals from other men that said, "Dog, you helped me," and so I call and they'll call me like, so and so gave me your number." I'm like, why are we whispering? We on the phone. It's all good. Uh, you know,
That's
but just
funny.
being able to get the oh, it is. I'm like, I'm like, okay, so what do you want out of this? Well, I know I need some help. You're still whispering. Ain't nobody else listening. But it is about putting our guards down and being vulnerable so that we can definitely get the necessary help that we need to survive, especially when we're talking about our mental wellness and what that looks like. Yes.
Most definitely.
Talk to me about this whole issue when we're talking about today is self-harm awareness day
Mhm.
and what that means to you when we're talking about self-harm, especially in our communities of color.
I mean, you really kind of hit on it when you hit the intro, right? Like to me,
Right.
self-harm can come in a multitude of ways. I know
Right.
one of the obvious ones that people always think of is the actual like mutilation aspect, taking,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of like dangerous objects to the body, or maybe, hurting yourself when it comes to different practices of like physical things that would cause you to feel pain. But then you also
Right.
talked about it too from the standpoint of like, alcoholism. You talked about drug addiction.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
Self harm can even flow around the sexual addiction aspect when you talk about
Exactly.
individuals that can't get
That's
enough and
good.
they open themselves up constantly to different diseases without thinking about it. Just like
Yes.
I need this.
Yes.
It's so bad that I need this that I'm willing
That's
to
good.
sacrifice parts of
Put myself
myself,
at
man. And I mean,
risk.
that was a big.
Yes.
100%. I mean, it comes in so many different ways, man. It's crazy you talked about the food aspect earlier as somebody who has overcome and is still on the journey of
Mm-hmm.
like consciously just
Mm-hmm.
always, being mindful of it, but, dealt with massive overeating for a long time. And because of
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
I ended up dealing with bulimia for like 6 or 7 years. That was a form of self
Wow.
harm.
Yeah.
So this
Exactly.
idea that
Exactly.
my desire for something is so strong that I'm willing to go to depths just to get a feel of it, a touch, a sense, a taste,
Yes.
whatever it might be. And so, we
Yes.
harm ourselves in a multitude of ways. And to your point as well,
That's right.
as you were talking about the doctor's statement, a lot of times we don't even realize that we're unconscious in our self-harm a lot of times because of
Right.
the fact,
Right.
specifically as a community, as Black folks, we've gotten so used to dysfunction that we think it's normal. And
Yes.
so I think
Yes.
that we've got to be very, very cautious with that. And that is one of the realms where self-harm can rest in a lot of times, is in
Hmm.
dysfunction that we've identified as normal.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree with you because too often we are so far gone mentally from what reality looks like until we don't even oftentimes see ourselves in a healthier position. And so we oftentimes will add to the story because many of us, I feel, don't even know what a healthy mindset and healthy emotional life really looks like because we've always seen it in this state of I don't know, confusion and state
Hmm.
of being either severely depressed or extremely high anxiety in
Yeah.
that. So it's hard to recognize what a healthy relationship or even healthiness look like. I know for me, growing up in a domestic violent household, it was
Yeah.
very art the you can walk into the house and you never knew what kind of day you were going to have based upon, I believe my father was undiagnosed, um what was he, bipolar, thank you, on the serious level. Now, my sister and I have arguments. I think he could have been almost borderline personality. She says bipolar. I'll go with her. Her degree is higher than mine. But so, but growing up like that, you did not know what a healthy home environment looked like. So I struggled with that for many years. So for me, a lot of times even self-harm was not saying anything and just internalizing it. So now you're growing all this anxiety, all this stress and pressure, or you learn to fake things and learn to please other
Hmm.
people. So I think one of my
Yeah.
biggest problems was I knew how to please other people while even putting my own desires second or last. And so I became extremely passive aggressive. And that was
Yeah.
not good because I didn't know how to even have healthy relationships. So self harm can come in so many different forms in
Absolutely.
that regards to. Yeah, most definitely,
No, and
most
I,
definitely.
I I love that
So
you I love that you put that out there, Marty. Sorry, I just and I
no,
think
no, you're
too,
fine.
as we talk about the dysfunction aspect, I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact too that in the dysfunction, like you said, we don't know necessarily what a healthy household looks like or what a healthy,
Right,
coping mechanisms look like. And so in this, I think a lot of
right.
times what we tend to find is that because we don't know what it looks like, we know that something's wrong. We can feel that when something's off, but our response to it, we haven't been educated in
Yes,
any way, shape, or form within it. And so a lot of times we
yes.
find ourselves in then like these three spaces of like numbing, disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
and then also like,
Yes,
I mean, we to a degree we'll disassociate ourselves, right? And so I think
exactly.
that and that is like I feel like that is one of the glaring features that we see when we talk
Yes.
about self-harm, is that a lot of times like people are just trying to take the pain away. And I'll use myself as an
Yeah,
example.
that
That's what
part.
actually
That
introduced me
part.
into the realm of self-harm. I was bullied when I was in 6th grade because of my
Okay.
weight. In my mind,
Mm-hmm.
I was upset after one particular incident took place, from me being bullied, and I said, "I'm tired of this. I'm sick
Yeah.
of how I'm being treated. I wanna be
Yes.
smaller. I wanna lose weight so that I could be accepted by everybody, by my peers, by the bullies, by all of this."
Right.
And I said, "Well, the only way that I could do that is if I lost weight, but I don't know how to lose weight. But maybe I could just cut some of the fat off of my body, and that would help."
Right.
And that was
Right.
the entryway for me, was like that
Wow.
was how it started. But in the
Yes.
transition over the next 2 to 3 years after that had started, it then kind of transitioned over into this thing of like, I think a lot of self-harm has to do with the fact that whether we've acknowledged it or not, it has to do with
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we are usually either one, punishing ourselves for feelings and
Yes.
experiences that we have, or
Yes.
if you were like me, you are an individual who was typically trying to, what I called, balance out the mental and the emotional pain by inflicting
That
some kind of
part.
physical pain to it. And so as
Yes.
we talk about
Yes.
dysfunction and unhealthy, upbringings, a lot of times we don't
Yes.
realize that we're punishing ourselves for some of those very reasons.
Most definitely, because the underlining issue and the underlining problem in self-harm is the person doing the self-harm is trying to find some release from the pain that they're in. And if we start looking at
Exactly.
self-harm from that perspective and that perspective alone, it changes the narrative of how we support that person. And we support the
Yeah. Yeah.
individuals doing the self-harm. And especially with young boys. I had a young boy as a client. He was, and I understood his pain because I was pissed off at his parents too, because they were just crazy. And that's my best theological and my best psychological, that I will say, theology and psychology explanation. They were cray cray. Um, and they were taking out their own frustrations on this son. And one time, Richard, I was, it was this close. I do not like doing child abuse too often, but this time, the father got upset with his son because his son wore his father's tennis shoes to school and almost abused the boy. He goes, "Well, he knows how much I like." I said, "You're missing the whole point." I remember when I finally got to the age that I was able to wear my father's shoes or something, it was like I'm now standing in his shoes. I said, that was a compliment he was trying to give to you, even though, and what do? Get upset with him and punish him. So this young man was cutting on the inside of his legs, on his thighs. And for different boys, and that people find very creative ways of cutting. Again,
Oh,
he was
100%.
trying to, yeah, eradicate the pain and the lack of acceptance that his father did not, quote unquote, accept him for who he was. And he was a brilliant young man. That's why
Mhm.
I struggle with child therapy, because I'm like, I just want to take all the kids home. Come on, come on, come on. I'm like, nah,
Right.
I gotta get other people to do child therapy because I'll have a whole orphanage full of kids because
Yeah.
of, but when we look at that, I then began to understand his pain, that mom had not accepted him, and these type of things, living with grandma because mom was pursuing another relationship. Dad had
Mm.
moved away, but he was so hard on him. So it's like, well, who loves me? And then especially when they get, well, why can't you just be my dad? See, then that's when all the tears start flowing, man. I'm like,
Right.
okay, we got to stop
100%.
this. Yeah. Yeah. But when we're looking at that, a lot of times when we're looking at, so we dealt with the pain. A lot of times other people are doing self-harm because they're trying to deal with their own interpersonal problems and challenges. If we're looking at
Mhm.
that too. So there's lots of different other reasons why people are cutting and or doing self-harm. Any others that you think of, Richard, since we're talking about self-harm here?
Um, it's interesting. You talked about the young man with his dad, and I
Yeah.
know that one of the things that I've seen before. I mean, sometimes with the self harm piece, I'm just from like a stemming area, but you talk about like
Right, right,
not being able to. How can I best say this? Like sometimes you find it hard to express yourself or to put things into words.
right,
And sometimes
right,
that's the only way it can come out for some people, right? I think that
right.
going into, the 31 Days of Power book that I released last year, one of
Yes.
the big conversations that I had around that first chapter of We All Have a Mental Health is that not only do we all
Hmm.
have a mental health, but when you talk about how certain traumas, experiences, and triggers hit us, we all carry different
Right.
responses. And I think
We
with
do.
that being
We
said,
do.
it self-harm is one of those areas, right? To where like maybe we don't know how to express it.
Mm.
Maybe we don't know what we're going to say. And so I think that that's just one of the things I'm thinking about too, is that for some people, they don't know how to express those
Yes.
words. And they don't
Right.
know how to get those emotions out. And the crazy part too is that self-harm doesn't always mean that we're going to inflict the pain, right? I remember doing a lot of the work
Exactly.
that I was doing in Chicago for a social service firm, excuse me, called ADS McKinley, and I worked doing some of the mental health work with young men from the age of like 8 to
Mhm.
like 18. And
Right, right.
a lot of times what I noticed there was that in the work in Chicago, I had a lot of young men from there and from my mentoring program that were heavily involved in gangs. And
Mhm.
so sometimes,
Right,
you know,
right.
self-harm would show up in ways like that, where it's like, you know, I play football to get my anger out, but some of these kids are going to the
Right.
streets, right? Some of the little
That's
homies are
good.
going to the streets. And so like
Yes.
I think even there, you know, when we talk about how it manifests itself there, if you were looking at how that would translate to somebody going to college, like I know some people join
Yes.
fraternities because they're looking for the brotherhood. Some people are joining
Yes.
it because it feels like it could be a coping mechanism to party all the
Right.
time and get away from the
Yes.
life that they once knew. Self
Mhm.
harm can come through
Mhm.
the romantic relationships. I mean, I
Yes.
was a victim of that as well. I was a victim of domestic abuse
Mhm.
for a year and a half because of
Mhm.
something very
Oh,
similar.
wow.
I was
Yeah.
seeking validation and
Right.
seeking sex. And in the process of that, I
Mhm.
didn't realize at the time that my exchange would be the fact that I'd be dealing with verbal and physical abuse on a consistent
Yes.
basis. But then also, too,
Yes.
even though I recognized it, my once again desire and yearning for the validation, for the
That's it.
acceptance, I was like, I'm good with being here if this is my trade off, you know, like that self harm. So
Yes.
when we talk about the way that
Yes.
it looks and where we see
Yes.
it and how we see it,
That's
it's
good.
broad, Marty. It's so broad.
It is. It is. And too often when we're in the situation, we don't have the mental capacity to say this is harmful. Or we just don't have that ability right then and there. And oftentimes we're not even aware enough to listen to other people, because when people bring it to our attention, we want to blame them. Says, oh, you just don't want to see me happy. No, I want to see you
Right.
healthy. And
There you go.
happiness and healthiness are two different things. I want to see you healthy. I know there's more to you than just this abusive relationship.
Absolutely.
You've probably heard this saying, and we've said it. Love should not hurt physically. It might hurt emotionally, but when we're starting now dealing with the physical side of that, there's a problem with that. And since we're talking about, let's talk about some of the warning signs. And I love what you said. Sometimes the physical abuse, the emotional abuse. I want to go to as well. Some people having low self-esteem, not having,
Hmm.
not thinking highly about themselves, so they'll put
Oh,
themselves
100%.
in various positions so that
Yep.
at least, and I've heard them say, at least I'm feeling something. And I was like, yeah, but let's feel something that's positive. Let's feel something that's
Right.
going to be healthy for you, that's going to develop you in the right way. Um, um, Relationship problems, huge with self-care.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about in the boyfriend, girlfriend, or what have you, but I'm also talking about relationship problems when you're dealing with mother-daughter,
Oh, yeah.
father-son,
Parental and
father-daughter, and
yeah.
all these parental, all of those things. And those are huge, because those usually are the indicators of, and I'm making a huge broad statement, of future self-harming behaviors
Yes. Yes.
in a lot of times. So behaviors like any others that you can think of, Richard?
Absolutely. So you mentioned the word behaviors, and I would definitely throw reckless behavior in there, right? The way that
Oh,
we
that's good.
live
Yes.
on a day, you know, just like willingly as well, right? Like willing reckless
Yes.
behavior on a
Yes.
consistent
Yes.
basis. And I love how you talked about like thinking as a futurist, like what this could potentially look like. But I would even throw in there
Yes.
how we choose to mask behind insecurities and flaws, right? That's
Yes.
another one that I
Yes.
think is huge,
Yes.
specifically when it comes out through the form of rage or anger.
Yes.
I would
Yes.
even say, you know, people, I fell into this trap for a long time, but hiding behind things that made me feel like I was better than others, titles,
Yes.
labels,
That's
positions.
good. That's
That, you know,
good.
I
That's
think that
good.
that could be a interesting precursor as well. Let's go down the
Hmm.
list, man. I had to jot and I took notes from my 31 Days of Power book because I got two specific chapters that dealt with this
Okay.
conversation. And so I'm gonna just
Nice.
go down the list of some of the things that I took from
Yes.
my own book. I like being able to say that. Yeah, okay.
Yes. That's right. Come on. Come
You
on.
know, but no,
Yes.
seriously, we
Yes.
need to pay attention to those that might. I mean, obviously, the obvious is those that talk about suicide as a way out. That's the easy
Hmm.
one, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think the one of the things that I've always thought was really important was the conversation, because I used to be this, but the fascination of access to lethal means, right?
Yes. Yes.
Pyromania.
Yes.
You talk about,
Yes.
the infatuation with blades, knives, guns, lethal
Yes.
access, lethal
Yes.
means. That could be
Yes.
another one, man. It's funny that we talked about
Yes.
the whole thing of like the fried bird earlier, but even the change and
Hmm.
shift of like dietary habits to like we're eating
Yes.
either eating too much or eating too little, right? And this is
Yes.
resulting in that fluctuation of like weight and all of that.
Yes.
Um, People who have consistent streaks of avoiding social interactions, and I want to be very clear about this.
Hmm.
I'm not talking
Hmm.
about those who are just introverted and need time to unplug and don't really care to be around
Right.
people. That's not what I'm referring to.
Right.
I'm talking
Right. Right.
about like that
Exactly.
that true disassociation, right? That disconnect to
Yes. Yes.
where I'm struggling and I want nobody around me. Like that's where we start to see more of it, right?
Hmm.
Individuals that find themselves in weird positions where they always have to prove that they need help, i.e., the strong friend,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
individuals that, oh no, you got it. Like the way that you handle everybody else and take care of everybody else,
Hmm.
the helper for
Yes.
others is another space that you're going to see it. I think when it's easy to feel as if we're faking the funk, here's another one, right? Like,
Yes.
um,
And we're good with that,
uh,
putting on that
oh,
mask. We're
100%,
faking it,
100%,
faking,
100%.
shaking.
And then
Yeah.
I absolutely, and then I would even say too, another one I talked about was we need to pay close attention to our routines, right? Some of us, specifically
Yes.
those of us, and this is for those of us in the work, right? Our routines
Yes.
start
Yes.
to feel very exhausting, right? This is
Yes.
something that could actually
Yes.
lead, whether we know it or not. I mean, we're once we start roaming in the realm of self-exhaustion or exhaustion from
Hmm.
work and not taking care of self, we're already kind of teetering the line of self-harming
Yes.
behavior. So that was one I would say. And then
Yes.
the last two, which the last one kind of leads into this one. Many
Hmm.
times we feel differently than how we act, right? We start to feel
Yes.
different from how we act. So, i.e., the fake the funk. But I think it's greater than just
Yep.
faking the funk. It's literally
Hmm.
portraying an image in the space of I can smile in your face, but I'm crying behind closed doors, right?
That's
I'm
right.
gonna act.
That's right.
I'm gonna put on a great show for you, but I'm not gonna show you what I'm really
Yes.
feeling. And then the final one, man, I think this
And
is a
that's
really
so
and
good.
oh, thank you, brother. And then I'm done. I'm done after this. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
you're
The
fine.
final potential warning sign that I thought was really important was many who deal with high functioning depression many times feel like self care is impossible, right? And so in that space, that could be an easy
Yes.
early sign as well. I think there was one more that I'm missing where I talked about uh God, Marty, if I can remember it was something around the whole proving that we need help aspect, but I think it was something greater there. But yeah, these are
Mm.
the ones that I snagged from my book that I felt were really important, and that I
Wow.
feel like can touch all of us in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, Richard, I love that. I love that, and you're hitting on so many great areas. I got to make sure I order your book. I don't know why I don't have your book. I got to order
I
your
thought you
book.
do.
And
I'll send you another one.
no, no, bro, no, I lied. I do have your book. It's in my
Yeah, I know. I
office.
was like, I remember sending it to you. I was like, I know you got it,
Yes,
Marty.
yes, I know I got that book. Thank you, Daryl Udabomb. That's right. Throw that over there. Yes, yes, I got it because it speaks to so many levels. I didn't picture it with the blue cover. I don't know what, but I picture some different cover on it. But it speaks to so many levels about why we even deal with a lot of the internal battles that we deal with, and you hit all the nails on the head with that, especially as successful men or men. We have the tendency of hiding our self-harm, hiding all of that in our work. So we're just busy all the time, not taking time for that self-care, not taking time to say, I need a day off, a sabbatical. But no, we just got to keep grinding, we got to keep pushing, and we got to keep pressing, because part of that was developed in us as a culture, and we have to make sure that we're not overstepping those boundaries, because even
Yeah.
Christ took a day off to rest. Now, who are we to think we better than the Christ himself? Well, he says, listen,
Exactly.
oftentimes, see, you made me go Bible. It says that he slipped away and just commune and slipped away from the crowd. We got to learn how to slip away from the crowd in order to take care of
Mhm.
this. So it then takes
That's
care of
good.
this in
That's
so many
good.
ways, so many ways. But Richard, you are sitting on, and you said something earlier that I like to mention when it comes to explosive behaviors, depression and anger, what that looks
Mhm.
like. And I would say it this way: for men, especially Black men, depression comes in the form of irritation, anger, outbursts of anger, and so many of those things. And so we
Yeah.
always want to label, you're the angry Black man. But in other words, I always go, what is troubling you? And when
Yeah.
we get to those type of things, we can always avoid maybe some of the self-harm things that they are doing: drinking, smoking, the unprotected sex, and all these other things. And
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have to look at all of that as a form, or the combination of all of that can be extremely ruthless and deadly if we're not careful.
Definitely.
And so
Absolutely.
helping the strong man, I love that you said that too, helping the strong man say, hey, it's okay. And how do we do that? I was dealing with you mentioned that the strong man. I was dealing with a dear friend of mine, and he's always just always going. And so there was something different about his countenance that day. I was like, dog, what's going on? I'm something is going on. No, I'm good. I'm good. Let's go. I said, no. No,
Mm.
we not continue on with this conversation, dog, until we have, because you are not yourself.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
trying to put up this act, but your countenance is gone, your normal energy. And Richard, when I said that, this strong brother just broke down. He goes, I'm tired. I
Wow.
can't do this anymore. I'm like, oh, we talking now. And it's
Yeah.
just taking the time and knowing the patterns. I think that's one of the biggest indicators of self-harm, is knowing if people's patterns have changed. And a
Mhm.
lot of times they're drastic, but we have to pay
Yeah.
attention to people so that we can know, say, bro. And that's why I was going, it's okay, brothers, to say, I'm not doing well today. I need help.
100%.
I can't
And
continue like this.
to that point, Marty, I think, one of my biggest challenges when it comes to those who are on the outside looking in and are connected to
Yeah.
people, whether they're
Yeah.
struggling or not, one of my biggest
Right.
charges has been this idea that we've got to do a better job as community to be
Yes.
more intentional with
Yes.
the people around us,
Yes.
right? And
That's
we can be
right.
honest, the last 24 months with COVID has definitely put us in positions to where we've been focused more on ourselves because we got our own stuff going on. And I get that, right? I don't
Yes.
take anything away from that. However,
Right.
I think that with such an easy, accessible opportunity to kind of
Yes.
pull back from community, that opportunity that COVID provided with that, we have got to
Yes.
challenge ourselves not to remain lazy. And I'm going to use that
That's
word,
right.
not to remain
Yes.
lazy when it comes to the
Yes.
efforts that we are putting forward because of this alternate lifestyle that we've developed,
Mm-hmm.
simply because of
Mm-hmm.
the fact that there have been some barriers that have caused us maybe not to be
Yes.
in person with people the same way or face to
Yes.
face. But I don't think that has to steal the level of intentionality that we possess when it
I
comes
agree.
to checking in on our friends so that we can
Right.
actually be somewhat privy to a warning sign. Sometimes we're missing warning
Yes.
signs not
Yes.
because we don't
Yes.
know. Sometimes we're missing warning signs
That's
because of
right.
the fact that we're not taking the time to be intentional. We're missing
That part.
warning signs because we're so caught
Yes.
up in everything else. And we've, to a degree, I'm not going to say neglected community, but maybe we've placed it on the back burner from what it used to be.
That part.
And so I
Yes.
believe that as we talk about these warning signs, we got to make sure that we are present enough to be able to see, like you were with that brother, to notice that he had a different disposition that day, to notice that
Yes.
something was
Yes.
off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. We have to, because we already know, especially in this COVID environment, that we are finally getting back out. We see people's
Hmm.
temperaments changing, but
Yeah.
depression, especially among men, was through the roof. And with our children, especially our extroverted people, I think we have to pay a lot of close attention to them. Because yeah, I get it, because we're used to, and see, you and I, we love people. I get
Yeah.
charged by being around people. And so now being home for 2, 3, 4 months at a time and not being able to go anywhere, it had its toll, on us psychologically. And even when I was
100%.
able
Yeah.
to produce, yes. And so it took over a month for me to say, okay, now that we're here, let me rechannel these things. Because it felt like the apocalypse for a minute there, where you go out there and nobody was in the streets. You're like, okay, now Christ, did I missed you? I'm supposed to be caught up with the rest of them.
There you go.
but
Right.
when you look at that, when you look at it though, Richard, you're absolutely right. We have to learn how to check on our families, check on our loved ones, check on our homies, check on our homegirls, check on just our friends, and that alone, especially I said this way, our single friends who are secretly suffering in silence.
Oh yes,
So that we make
absolutely.
sure they are doing well with that as well. Yes, so I appreciate you, man. Um, let's talk about what are some things, and how can people get help? What was the biggest turning factor for you? Because you've been so amazingly candid in sharing your journey, but what was that turning factor for you when you realized, I don't want to live this way any longer, and I'm going to start loving me right where I'm at, whether I'm fat, skinny, pretty, ugly, short, tall, whatever, because everyone has some sort of psychological challenges
Yeah.
in that regards. But when was that point that, because I had thick glasses, I couldn't wait to get contacts, brother. I could read the big E and that was about it. I said, I know there's an E because y'all told me there was an E. Could not wait till I got LASIK surgery.
Funny.
Like, I can see. Thank you,
I
Jesus.
love it. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. No, man, mine came with I mean, I was after my final suicide attempt in 2008, January
Okay.
21st, 2008. It was after that
Wow.
final attempt because I was at my lowest of my low, and I knew I needed help. I
Right.
just didn't know
Right.
what that looked like.
Right.
So I started going to therapy, man. And I still fought that nail in tooth for a while. I ain't gonna let no
Sure.
shrink
Sure.
evaluate me, try and tell me about myself. Like, I went through the whole notion of it, right? And so, with that being the case, though, I
Mhm.
also started developing a better community of people around me. I grew up in the
Yes.
Christian faith,
Ooh.
and it wasn't until that happened to where I started taking my relationship with Christ serious. It wasn't until
Yes.
that moment where I was like, oh, I need to be better about this. Like I've just been kind of once again faking the funk, and so
Right. Right.
with that happening, man, it was a multitude of things over an extended period of time. So
Sure.
community, the
Yes.
therapy aspect, which gave me an
Yes.
opportunity to learn more about myself, to learn my patterns, to learn my triggers, to be able to
Mhm.
to deal
Mhm.
with and visit a lot of the childhood
Mhm.
things, relationship
Mhm.
with my dad, which my dad has always been present. Him and my mom, I think, are going on 36 years this year. But I'm the oldest of
Wow.
three boys. So for me, a lot of our clash came through the fact that I was the experimental child. And I mean, I can look at it now at 33 and say he was working with what he knew, which it might not have
Right.
been much, but he was working with what he
Right.
knew. And so
Right.
just I think in understanding that and taking it off of me from a standpoint of being so offended and just really trying to gain a different level of perspective, that was part of the help for me. That was
Yeah.
part of the,
Yeah.
the dynamic of change for me. But then you also couple in, man, just working out, getting my body right physically, all of these different things played a huge part as positive
Yes.
investments that would essentially
Yes.
help me. Um, but then also too, to that point, you mentioned like learning to love yourself no matter like where you were, body wise, weight wise, all of
Yeah.
that. That took some time. That took some time,
It
and
does
I'll
take
be
time.
honest, where I still struggle with that. Like I've lost in total 170 pounds, and I've done great things.
Wow.
But like one of the things I've realized that I'm
Wow.
still like never really satisfied. But like learning to be okay with where I am and know that I can like
Yes.
make investments and changes to get further along,
Yes.
essentially. So like it's just little things like that. And I think all of those coupled in have really helped me to like really gain some kind of hold
Yes.
on this whole thing. And so those would be some of the early on things. And then of course you got to
Love that.
keep the patterns going. You got to keep the
Right.
practices going
Yeah.
within that.
Yes.
The beautiful part about like learning myself was that I really started to develop a small sense of self-worth. And I think once that
Mm.
happened, my mindset then became, does this deserve my time? Does this deserve my mind? Does this deserve my body? Like you got to start asking
Yes.
yourself the hard questions too, right? And so I think that was a huge part of it
Yes.
too, Marty.
And I think that's a beautiful sign that you are in the healing continue, because it's a continuing
Oh, 100%.
process.
Always, always will be.
We don't ever just fully arrive. We're always evolving and growing
Yeah.
and challenging things. And I love it because when you start challenging, is this worth my time? Is this worth my body? Is this worth my mind? Is this worth my soul even? We
Hmm.
then are looking at it from a different aspect, because now we're starting to love ourselves, which is so key in preventing this whole self-harm
Yeah.
situation, is teaching us how to love ourselves, right, wrong, indifferent, or what have you, and look at us from a different lens. We were
Yeah.
looking at each other, you know. I didn't got old, Richard. Now I know I have the surgery, but I still got to have a reading glasses, you know.
Oh.
So don't. Being your father the same age, I'm 55, so I put these glasses on, be like, look,
Go
but
ahead on. Go
when you
ahead on.
look, when you look at it from a new set of lenses, it's amazing how much more of the world we can really see. Not just the
Yeah.
world, but how much of ourselves we can really see, and see that there's more beauty about me than there is ugliness. See, and when I
I
start
love it.
seeing that, I then begin to grow and nurture the beautiful things about myself, and starve and
Mm.
allow to die the ugly things about ourselves. Because what
Yeah.
we water is going to grow, and what we
Yep.
starve is going to die. So I get
That's
the
it.
choice. See, now you got me into preacher mode. I get the choice of making the difference about my life and what I want to portray. I can portray this healthy person that's not quite yet arrived, but we're on the process, and I'm better
Yeah.
today than I was yesterday, but not as good as I'm going to be tomorrow.
Come on. That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's all I want to say tonight. That's it. That's it. But no, that's so important, Richard, because we all have to look at ourselves from a different lens.
Yeah.
From a different lens. I remember even when I started my business about just 5 years ago. I always said, you know, I just want to learn how to be a good CEO. I'm a horrible CEO, and my business coach says, stop it. You have to start thinking like one. You're already one. So stop saying, I want to be, and just walk in, you are. That made such a huge difference in how I not only looked at myself, but also the trajectory of the business practice itself, because now I was standing for, and operating it and leading it from a different position.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's the same thing we have to do with our own selves. Lead our own lives from a different position. Didn't mean that I arrived. Didn't mean that I still won't make major mistakes along the way. But now I'm doing it from the point of, okay, I made that mistake. I'm not going to beat myself up constantly about it. What can I learn from this mistake so I don't repeat that again in the future?
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. Richard, you are absolutely amazing, man. Brother, I appreciate you so,
Oh, thank you,
so
bro.
much.
So are
I
you.
want to go back to your book, because this book of yours, everyone needs to get it. How do we get your book? 31 Days of Power.
RichardTaylorJr.com. It's right there on my website. Easy to access. Just go to the website, click books. This and all of my other 6 books will appear. And yeah, you can have at it right
I
there.
love it. I love it, man. Well, I'm sharing this here. I am, you know, brother. I always got all kind of things I'm working on and stuff. You know, I'm
You
going to
sure
be
do.
filthy
You
rich,
do.
so I can, so, right. So I could do all the things I have dreamed. My
There you
next
go.
vision. is a black man writing tour. And that we all go on this tour together
Okay.
across the country.
Love it.
So I got about 5 other brothers. Definitely, you have to be on there because we need to get help to our communities, and we're going to go to all
Yeah.
the Black-owned bookstores and that type of thing, and share our products and our books with our own. I'm going to say our own congregations, our own community, and really help to make a difference in the lives of the people that we service.
There you
Yes,
go.
yes. Man,
I love
I
it.
can't thank you enough. Before we leave, how do we follow you? I know we got richardtaylorjr.com as your website. What are other social
Yeah.
handles that we can reach you at, man?
Unfortunately, I wasn't cool or quick enough to get the same name on all the social media platforms. So it's Richard.Taylor Jr. on Instagram, Richard L. Taylor Jr. on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then at Truly Tailor Made on Twitter. So yeah, I'm there.
Nice.
And you got the website, and then the Between the Dream podcast. You can always hear me there every Monday, Wednesday,
Nice.
and Friday on the Between the Dream podcast, everywhere podcasts can be heard.
You shoot your podcast 3 times a week. I'm nowhere near you. God bless you.
Stop it.
I'm not
No,
worthy.
but
I'm not
my
worthy.
format is a little different though. So I'm just now getting into
Okay.
the space again where I'm having guests. So usually what I try and do with it, just because I know our attention spans, i.e. reading or even watching videos, can be like this. What I've tried to do is
Yes.
essentially give like quick 5 to 7 minute messages
Nice.
for that day, just as like a little bit of encouragement just to pull you through the day. So with that being said, the recording looks completely different. I'm not on your level where I got somebody, you know, actually running sound and tech and quality control.
Oh, stop it.
I'm in
Listen,
a little old booth, you know, just a little humble old
Don't
phone
even try
booth,
it.
just doing my thing, you know.
Don't even try it. Don't even try it. Man, definitely. Well, listen, send our love to the family. Send me that
Will
link
do.
for Sunday. For sure. For
Oh,
sure.
absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yes, man. And so much
Which is
appreciated.
so
Thank you
funny. Real quick to that point, Marty, the
Yes.
sermon itself that I'm preaching, my pastor, so we're finishing up this habit series, and
Okay.
he wanted me to put together a message around how do we stay sustained for the long haul in our missional work. And
Right.
so it's super funny that the sermon itself is around self-care and being able to
See?
rest physically,
Yes.
but also rest within the Father. So I'm gonna make sure I send that to you.
Oh, please do, because you know a brother needs it. You know, that's one of the areas I'm not gonna lie, I struggle with. I was supposed to have
I
been
think we
home
all
sick
do.
today. Yeah. And I still was taking calls, and my coach was like, "You're supposed to be sick." I'm like, "I just took some Pepto-Bismol, took a couple of peppermints, and kept it pushing." He's like,
Wow.
"Really?"
Don't forget the ginger ale with
That's
the saltine crackers, Marty.
Yes, did that too. Trust me. Because a brother was like, "Whew." I said, "If I disappear, I'll be right back." But that's what we do.
Yo, I'm
Man,
with you, 100%.
Definitely, Richard. Y'all show some love for Richard Taylor, please, Jr. Please make sure that you get all his information because it is going to help your life. Y'all, I thank you again for joining us on this special edition as we're talking about self-harm and a self-harm awareness day. Richard Taylor Jr. I got a cousin named Richard T. Jones. Richard, I almost called you Richard T. Jones, but Richard Taylor Jr. dropped us some nuggets on here tonight about the importance of taking care of yourself. And we definitely want to share. He said it's necessary, I'm going to put it this way, that we have an outstanding community, that we have an outstanding counselor. And then he said, in our community, for what he's saying too, is making sure for those who are believers that we have an outstanding relationship with Christ. I believe that's going to be part of our healing process. That's a part of the treatment plan, because you don't have to continue to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame. And we don't want you to do that. So please take note of all the behavior challenges that we are seeing in our loved ones as we are seeking getting them help during this time of self-harm awareness. So we don't want to leave you with not having the proper resources. So if you find yourself in need of resources, this is what we want you to do. If you're in crises, you can always type crises to 741-741. You can also go to Psychology Today to find profiles of therapists who look like you in your area, as well as therapy for Black men. And last I heard, they had some free scholarships on there for any Black man who needs therapy, as well as goodtherapy.com. And then finally, we want you to reach out if you have any questions to marcelconsulting.com. And we are definitely in Southern California, right outside of Los Angeles, in the greater Inland Empire area. And again, please check out our website at mentalhealthmarty.com. There you will find lots of various merchandise to support you along your mental health and wellness journey. And I have this amazing journal on there of positive affirmations that's called Stop the Stinking Thinking. That is a writing journal, and the book itself, Stop the Stinking Thinking, will be released for Father's Day of this year. So excited about that. And then also our t-shirts and hoodies, Black Mental Health Matters. In other words, Black Men Matter. An amazing support there along your journey. And then there's other paraphernalia there as well. In this journey called life, we don't want you to continue to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame. But it's okay to say, I'm not okay and I need help. As always, we want you to speak up, speak out, and live. But more importantly, always remember to enjoy your life. We'll see you next week. Take care.